I'm joined today by Julius Horsthash. Did I get that right?
Almost, yeah, it's Horsthuis.
Horsthaus. Oh, okay. Man, you guys have some awesome names. Is that where's it from?
It's a Dutch name.
Oh, it's Dutch. Okay,
It's from an old Dutch village
nice.
somewhere or
Are,
something.
are you in Amsterdam right now?
Yeah, I'm in Amsterdam. Yeah, that's correct.
Wonderful. Well, Julius is the god of this world when it comes to fractal art. And when I say fractal, I mean these insane dimensions that are beyond this reality, things that will blow your mind when you see them. So I know I've been following Julius since uh, maybe 2 years ago when I found his fractal art, and I highly recommend you check it out. I'll be playing some videos here for you guys to see. And um, Julius, we'd love to hear from you how you got into this, what you're working on right now. What's the thing that just lights you up that you just love talking about?
Absolutely. Yeah. So thank you for having me. It's um, it's been quite a journey into fractals these last 6 years for me. It's not like I wanted to become a fractal artist when I came out of high school or something like that. I didn't know what fractals were back then, and so the journey that I took was one where I always wanted to get into film. I loved filmmaking. I wanted to make sort of like cool science fiction movies with high budget stuff, as a teenager. That's really the sort of path that I took. I wanted to go to film school, but I got rejected a couple of times. So I just worked in the film industry. And then I started playing around with 3D computer software, and I got into the VFX industry, so CGI stuff, all quite regular stuff that happens in the commercials, TV, film, that sort of stuff. And then it was sometime in 2013 where I got introduced by. I just saw it on the web. I saw these 3D fractals, and I thought this is really something I'd never seen before. This is a really I was just immediately mesmerized by the complexity of it and the aesthetics of it. And I was writing a script. I wanted to make this sort of script. I was like, this is the perfect location or like thing to like as a setting for a science fiction film. So I started exploring how to make it, and since I was working at this visual effects company with all these like computers with render farms and all that stuff, and I understand a little bit about rendering and about camera work and about colors and about post processing. So I was able to very quickly, um, or relatively quickly, because nothing is quick when it comes to fractals, because these render times are even if you have a render farm are absolutely crazy. But I was able to create some animations, and that was just something that all the other computer software that I had been experimenting with, it was like, yeah, it's fun and it's interesting. But this was just something like, wow, this is so crazy. And I thought maybe I'm going to get bored of it after a year or something. But here I am 6 years later, still every time I open that software, you see some new formula. It looks like you're visiting a new alien planet, and it's just been crazy.
Thank you for sharing that. It is an insane program. I've been able to dive in, and it is just incredible how math has essentially given us the ability to create worlds within worlds. And I love what you've done with some of these VR experiences are incredible. Are you working on anything related to VR right now?
So yeah, I've been VR was absolutely the first time I rendered a fractal for VR. It was really something interesting because the whole immersive aspect of it. It's not something you look. It's not a render that you look at, but it's become a place that you really feel like you're in, and that is so powerful with VR. And because of the nature of the sort of architectural nature almost of these mathematical structures, it makes it very fit for VR. Uh, I have, however, not really done much of VR lately because I have been much more interested in working for Full Dome. So it's very related to VR in a way. The only difference being that VR is a full 360-degree sphere, and full dome is like a planetarium theater, right? So it's a 180-degree, so you can't look below you, but you can look above you. But the resolution of full dome is so much higher, and I also prefer the fact that it's an act that, just the whole experience of going to a full dome theater. You can go there with your friends, you can go there, with a festival or something. With it's a much more, it's really much more like going to the movies. Whereas with VR, it's still just you're just sitting there by yourself, looking around, and it's really great to, but it's not something you're gonna just do with your friends. So and also VR still has that problem of the peripheral vision isn't completely fixed yet. So you still have sort of a little bit of a tunnel vision, whereas in this full dome, you really feel like that the entire field of your vision is encompassed by these fractal worlds. So that's what I'm working on right now. I've finished a full dome short film a couple of months ago, and I was like, I want to make a longer form film. So right now I'm sort of just starting with creating like a maybe 30 or 40 minutes full dome film, which is just going to be this sort of like journey into all these other worlds.
That's a very long time. That's a lot of rendering.
Yeah, it's not going to be finished anytime soon. Yeah, that's right.
Is this you're making this for someone?
No, this would be just because of something that I really want to make. So yeah, this is not something I can be working on full time, because I'm gonna have to take some other projects to pay the bills. But yeah, I'll just, every time that I have when I'm not working on anything else, I'll be jumping on this.
Wow. That's an ambitious project to take on. Are you just, I guess, for my own personal knowledge, are you outsourcing things? Obviously, you have a cloud rendering farm to render that stuff,
Uh, no,
right?
it's actually, I'm actually rendering everything I from my in my own render farm that I have.
Sorry,
Uh,
let me mute myself.
yeah,
That's got to be a nice farm. Uh, so
yeah.
you're not rendering this stuff, or you're not hiring other people. You're doing everything on your own.
Yeah, I'm doing everything on my own. The whole thing with the outsourcing of rendering is that it's first of all, there are no like commercial render farms that do Mandelbob 3D, which is the software that I use. So if you work with Cinema 4D or anything like that, you can easily outsource those renders to a farm, because they have, Cinema 4D and stuff. But Mandelbob 3D is too much of an exotic piece of software for render commercial render farms to take that serious. So there are ways to do it, but I'm rendering 24/7, like, so it's always cheaper to do it yourself. My computers are always rendering fractals, so there's just never not rendering. So it would make no sense to pay a render farm to use their computers, because I would be using them constantly, and they would charge me extra for that. So it's cheaper to render them yourself. Uh, and yeah, this is just some, like, for this right now I'm rendering for this full dome films, and it will be 5K resolution. This is a sequence, like just one scene, a sequence of like 4,000 frames, and I'm at frame 1,000 right now after a month. So that could be easily another 2 or 3 months until just that one sequence is rendered. But it's worth it.
That's
Yeah.
some dedication right there. I applaud you. Your films are amazing. I think it just goes to show, like, the dedication. You kind of have to be obsessed about this to do it. What is driving you? Like, what's your purpose? Is it, I mean, is it just like, oh, this is just a thing I do, or do you have some greater, like, life mission, or like, I feel like people are loving it. Like, what is your why?
The Well, one of the things that drives me every day, of course, is feedback. It's just great if what you make, other people enjoy that as well. That is, if that wasn't the case, if no one ever told me, "Oh, I like your work," I probably wouldn't have been able to put up the energy in order to continue doing that. But in a more broadly, I guess, it's that I wanted to make films, and didn't know how to. I mean, I was imagining to make, to direct movies with actors and sets and all that. For me, I'm doing that a little bit. This is like, you you have these worlds, you don't create them, you find them, and you get to be a director in those worlds. You get to, uh, just like edit and find music, get the right lighting, camera work, almost everything except obviously um, uh, directing actors is actually in those fractals. So for me, it's very much like I'm creating little films that I've always wanted to do. I never imagined that they would be films like this, and that they would. But yeah, that's really something that I've just always loved doing, and I think is it's just awesome.
And what other projects are you working on right now? Maybe that light you up, other than the 40-minute one and the one that you're rendering.
Absolutely, yeah. So, well, I'm just next week will probably be the last week of a project that I have been working on together with a Dutch film director called Lucas van Woerkom, and he is creating this film for symphonic cinema, which means that he takes classical music from Gustav Mahler, and he's creating a movie around that. And the movie contains a couple of scenes that is about death and about the process of dying, in this case of his daughter. And in order to visualize that process going to the afterlife, or the other, so he wanted to use fractals in order to do that. So I've been creating this about 10 minutes worth of fractal, which is really cool because it will be played with a live orchestra in the concert hall here in Amsterdam, and maybe touring around the world as well later. So that's going to be very powerful, having these fractals with this sort of live orchestra of I don't know how many musicians. So that's one thing I'm working on. And then there are gallery exhibitions that are probably going to happen as well this year. So that's something that I'm going to have to think about as well in the very nearby future.
Well, the orchestra one sounds awesome. That has a lot of potential. It's almost like above and beyond. They do live orchestra performances, but they also do the electronic DJ EDM performances, and so kind of this mix mash of technology and art and music and into classical. I mean, almost making what you're doing classical in a way. And I think fractals and death, that's a fascinating subject.
It's very fascinating. Yeah, absolutely. It's I have not had any of those experiences myself, but I once got an email from a person who had a near death experience, and years ago, obviously one that he survived, and then he saw one of my films on Vimeo, the one called Thermal Stress, which is a little bit of a black and white thing. It looks like gears, almost like gears that are sort of interlocking, but then the gears are consistent, as is always the case with fractals of gears of themselves. So there's like, it's like this infinite regress, right? And he saw that, and he wrote me. He's like, this is exactly the sort of hallucination that I had during this horrible period of my life. And he said, thank you for just like showing me again that is possible. I had no idea. For me, it was just these fractals, but that really tells you something about, I guess, the nature of our brain and the way that I guess our brain can has this sort of fractal capacity, or in a way that. So there's definitely that link between these fractals and death. Yeah.
Fascinating. Uh, Is is what your drive? You talked about it a little bit before, uh, like working on these projects. It helps getting the feedback from other people. What are some of the main things that people say about the experiences? You just mentioned the one with somebody said, "Thank you for making this. This looked like." when I had a near death experience. What are some other comments like that you get frequently from people, from fans?
I guess one of the comments I get a lot is people asking if I'm high when I create these things. uh, I hear musicians also get that question quite a lot. Um, Another question that I get a lot, obviously, is how you make it, or also a lot of people would love to have it in a game. They go like, "Oh, can you make a game with this?" And then I have to disappoint them because real-time fractals are not anywhere near possible, at least not on the detail that my work usually is. Um, yeah.
Nice. Yeah, it seems like when people see your stuff, they're just inspired, and it seems like, wow, we can if this one guy did this one thing, what could I do? And at least that's what it was for me. I'm in visual effects as well, and I quit my job so that I could pursue VR and fractals and try to recreate uh, therapeutic experiences for people. And I think you've already done that, maybe unintentionally as a byproduct of what you've created is almost therapy when you're immersed in these 180 domes at Wisdom LA. I just went there a few weeks ago, and you're just immersed in this like tunnel vision, and it's an incredible experience. And I highly recommend that people go and see that your stuff travels all around the world, and constantly. How are you getting your message out? What are you having? You just kind of like give it to people, and they say, "Oh, thanks," and you'll show it kind of as a thank you. How does that work? How's the process for you, getting your product all around the world for people to see?
Well, I have not really done a lot in terms of promoting my art, or if that's what you mean. Um, that I have been, I like I said, I don't work in a team or anything like that. So I don't have a producer, or that for me talks to people like Wisdom, or so it's been just a slow process where I create things, and people seem to like it and pick up on it and want to show it in the Wisdom. So I'm like, oh yeah, that's a 90-foot dome that fits about, I don't know, 800 900 people. uh, that sounds cool. So yeah, I've just been figuring this out, you know, uh, going along, and I'm still figuring this out, especially with domes. If I'm making this like longer film, I'm gonna have to figure out, where are the domes, who is interested in something like this, uh, because my film that I made is only 11 minutes. That's not going to be enough for people to go buy a ticket for, and you want something longer than that, or you so it needs to go be programmed in with something else. uh the fractals just speak for themselves in a way. I guess I don't need to have a whole story, um why fractals are important, or why you should go see fractals or something. It's the fun stuff is with fractals, it's a sort of, it is like a booster for your imagination. It's what, if you have any imagination, which luckily most people do, it'll just like supercharge it. So people often put labels on what they see, like one person saw a fractal film of me, and she was a biologist, and she said, wow, I loved how you make this movie about evolution and about cells and about, because that was her perspective. And another person saw the exact same um, film, and he was spiritual. So he said, wow, you made this film about these spirits, and about these, and he was absolutely certain that that was the message that I put in there. And this is just great. That's just the thing with fractals. Obviously, with all abstract art in a way, but with these fractals, it's really, that's what I want to try and get better at, to sort of create an environment using aesthetics of film and these otherworldly places, that people can sort of go like, oh yeah, I wish I would, and then it'll just like their imaginations go run wild.
Well, You've certainly done it for me, and I'm sure millions of others who you don't even know, who haven't even reached out to you, have probably gone away to create their own experiences and just been absolutely inspired. So thank you for what you've created and what you've put out into the world. I think each of us has this potential within us to create, to get to know our ourself, and art is a process of that. And it sounds like you've been able to really deliver massive value to people, and they just see that, like you said, it just sells itself. It almost doesn't need marketing because people see it and they're like, whoa, I don't know how this happened, but this is amazing. I want to go try to recreate something like this. So that's wonderful. I think that's what art is all about. Well, at least for me,
Yeah,
obviously.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah, for me too. I mean, I think art is something that has to be beautiful, it has to inspire people. And the great thing with fractal art is it doesn't you don't need any sort of cultural reference or anything like that. You don't need to understand anything. You can be a 3-year-old toddler and you would be able to enjoy it. Or, you could be from, I don't know, Papua New Guinea, and you could enjoy it. You don't need any sort of that's what I love about fractal art, for sure.
Was there, uh, mm, is there any last message or anything that you'd want people to hear? Maybe something that you get asked a bunch that you can say, or just maybe a message to um, my small audience about finding their thing.
Well, I mean, if your audience is interested in creating fractals, one of the things that I love to do is to sort of to see it like, this is also in the talk that I give, sometimes to sort of see it like like it's architecture. And then, because it's all new territory, if you take like like even 3 or 4 formulas and you combine them together, you're gonna combine them in a way that no one's ever combined them before, because there's just so many formulas and so many different ways you can combine them, right? So if you do that, you are going to find shapes that look either very organic, like they're on a planet or a cave system or a jungle or whatever, or very architectural, like they're temples built by alien civilizations. And you get to see features that are sort of characteristic to that set of formulas. You can name them. You can go like, I named this place. It's really like being an explorer. Like, just you get to name your world, and I think this is extremely fun to do. So I would encourage people to that are interested in creating fractals to see it that way, to see it like exploration, pioneering.
It's like the digital architecture frontier of new abstractions that have never been seen. I love that. All right. Well, thank you. I'm actually going to hit end right now, and then I'll just talk to you for a couple minutes. Thanks everyone for joining in, and until next time.
Thank you. Bye.